So now the regulation of enzyme activity. We can classify regulation means here the enzyme activity can be increased, can be decreased. Previously inhibitor they stop the enzyme reaction, but regulator they can increase the reaction, can decrease the reaction. So here lies the basic difference between the inhibitor and the regulators. So regulators, the regulation can be of by four ways. First is your allosteric regulation. Second is your covalent modification. Third is your regulation at genetic level. Means repression, derepression. Fourth is your compartmentalization. And fifth is your trimming of the inactive enzyme. So by this way the enzyme function can be regulated. That is your allosteric regulation, then your covalent modification, then is your regulation at the genetic level, and then is your compartmentalization and trimming of the inactive enzyme. So first that is our allosteric regulation. So allosteric regulator, here the modifier or the regulator binds a site other than the active site. These are not inhibitor, they are regulator. I have already told. They can increase the rate or they can decrease the rate. So here the allosteric modifier, they bind at a site other than the active site. They are not structural analog of the substrate and they can increase the rate of the reaction. Then we call it positive regulator. And if they decrease the rate of the reaction, we call it negative regulator. Okay, so this type of regulator, they can increase the rate of reaction, they can decrease the rate of the reaction. They bind at a site other than the active site. This binding is a reversible manner with no covalent bond formation. There is no covalent bond is there, and this is a reversible type of regulation because this can be easily broken off. So this is a reversible type. No covalent bond is there. They bind at a site other than the active site. This may be adjacent, or this may not be adjacent at the active site. They can increase the rate, they can decrease the rate. And usually this type of enzyme, the enzymes which follow this allosteric regulation, we call the enzyme allosteric enzyme. And this enzyme usually does not show the Michaelis-Menten kinetics. So this curve, hyperbolic curve, is not seen in this type of enzymes. They show a S-shaped sigmoid. The kinetic here show a S-shaped sigmoid curves. They does not follow the Michaelis-Menten kinetics. And usually these enzymes are multi-subunit. So there is a quaternary structure in the enzyme. So these enzymes are usually multi-subunit enzymes. And they show a specific property called positive cooperativity. So what is positive cooperativity? As I have already told, these enzymes are multi-subunit. So binding of one subunit with the enzyme causes a conformational change of the total enzyme. So when the next enzyme comes to bind with the subunit, then this is much easier. So this type of curve is there. So this is called positive cooperative. As they are multi-subunit, so binding of one subunit to the enzyme increases the affinity of the other subunit for the enzyme. So this is the peculiarity of this type of regulator. That is this type of your enzyme. That is our allosteric enzyme. So the enzymes which follow this allosteric regulation, we call the enzyme as allosteric enzyme. They are usually multi-subunit They does not bind at the site, at the active site. This they bind at other site. This site may be adjacent, may not be adjacent, and they can increase the rate or decrease the rate. And the enzymes which follow this regulation are called allosteric enzyme. And this type of enzyme does not show the Michaelis-Menten kinetics. Rather, they show a sigmoid effect curve. And they are usually multi-subunit. They follow the quaternary structure of protein, and they follow this specific property called positive property. Okay, and the example. The example is like citrate. This is an allosteric regulator. It can activate the enzyme acetyl-CoA carboxylase. And it can inhibit the enzyme PFK, that is our phosphoglutamate. So one single molecule, one single thing, one single molecule can be a positive activator and can give a negative feedback. So here it activates the enzyme acetyl-CoA carboxylase and increases fat synthesis. At the same time, decreases the PFK, that is our phosphoglutamate, and inhibit the glycolysis. This is one example of allosteric regulation. So this citrate allosterically activate the acetyl-CoA carboxylase and fatty acid synthesis, and allosterically inhibit the phosphofructokinase and inhibit the glycolysis. Clear? Another example is like your ATP and AMP. So ATP, so it is a allosteric inhibitor of the enzyme PFK, because when there is increased ATP, when there is much more ATP is there, means there is the energy demand is less, so there is no need of glycolysis. So now the ATP allosterically inhibit the PFK, which is a rate limiting enzyme of glycolysis. So there is decreased glycolysis, decreased TCA cycle, your decreased TCA cycle and decreased electron transport chain, and there is decreased energy or decreased ATP formation. Because we have high amount of ATP in our body, so this high amount of ATP there is no energy need. So there is no need of runoff glycolysis and the ETC electron transport chain. So this ATP allosterically inhibit the enzyme PFK. But what happens when AMP is high? When AMP is high, it means the body is in high need of energy. So energy have to be formed. How energy formed? So it allosterically activate the enzyme PFK. So there is increased glycolysis, increased TCA cycle, and increased amount of ETC and increased ATP formation. So ATP allosterically inhibit the enzyme PFK, and AMP, that is our adenosine monophosphate, it allosterically activate the enzyme PFK. So these are the classical examples of allosteric regulation. Next is your covalent modification. Means here a non-protein part of the enzyme, it can be cleaved and it can be added via covalent linkage. And this addition, a non-protein portion is added. It can be added or can be cleaved by cleavage. It can be added or can be cleaved. So a covalent bond can be formed or a covalent linkage can be cleaved in this type of modification. And this causes increasing the activity or decreasing the enzyme activity. Clear? So a non-protein portion can be added to the enzyme or it can be clipped from the enzyme. This is the basic form of covalent modification. This can be done via phosphorylation, dephosphorylation, where a phosphate group is added or a phosphate group is clipped, via adenylation and via binding of calcium. So what happened when this non-protein part, this usually charged group, that is a phosphate group, adenylate group, the calcium, all are charged. So when they are cleaved or they are added, so there is there is an alteration in the three-dimensional structure of the protein. So the activity, due to this alteration of the three-dimensional structure of the protein, the activity of the protein can be, or the enzyme can be increased or decreased. This happens in a molecular manner. That is, the charge group is added or cleaved. So the three-dimensional structure of the enzyme, which is a protein, is altered. So the activity altered. It may decrease or it may increase. So in the covalent modification, first and foremost example is phosphorylation, dephosphorylation. The example is glycogen phosphorylase. Which is activated by a phosphorylation. So glycogen phosphorylase, when it is phosphorylated, it is active, and when it is dephosphorylated, it is inactive. Vice versa in glycogen synthase. When it is phosphorylated, it is inactive, but when it is dephosphorylated, it is active. So glycogen phosphorylase, it is active in phosphorylated form, and glycogen synthase, it is active in dephosphorylated. This is the classical example. Another thing I have told, that is our calcium. It has been seen that the calcium binding, it has been seen that the enzymes like pyruvate carboxylase, pyruvate kinase, and your glycogen synthase. These enzymes, the activity of this enzyme can be increased via this calcium ion. And this is one important example of your covalent modification. So first example is via phosphorylation or dephosphorylation. So another covalent modification, three types of covalent modification can be done. One is your phosphorylation, dephosphorylation, another is your binding of calcium, and another is your adenylation. Adenylation means, here the important example is Vibrio cholera. Vibrio cholerae is a bacteria, we all know, and the toxin liberated from this is cholera toxin. This cholera toxin, they enter through intestine. They usually binds with the GM ganglioside receptor of the small intestine. And what they do is, they causes, usually if I draw the structure of NAD, then what is the structure? Nicotinamide, adenine, nicotinamide, ribose, phosphate, ribose, and here the adenine. So this is the structure of NAD. Nicotinamide, ribose, phosphate, ribose, and adenine. And these, the cholera toxin, usually what they do, they cleave here. So now the ADP ribose, so adenine, ribose, and phosphate. Adenine, this portion is ADP, adenine, ribose, phosphate, diphosphate. So it is ADP and another extra ribose. So it is ADP ribose. So these ADP ribose, they now bind with the GS protein. That is G protein, stimulatory G protein. And this is the example of adenylation. This is the example of adenylation, which is a classical example of covalent modification. I have told that covalent modification can be done by three ways. One is phosphorylation, dephosphorylation. One is attachment of calcium. Another way is adenylation. What is adenylation? Here the ADP ribose is attached with the stimulatory G protein. This is this is the example of adenylation. This linkage is via covalent linkage, and as it binds with the your stimulatory Okay, what happens when this stimulator G14 is active? So now stimulator G14 and adenylation. Adenylation happens with this stimulator G14. So it becomes active. What happens? Its intrinsic GTPase activity is lost. GTPase activity is lost. So it becomes in activated form. So there is increased amount of cyclic AMP generation and there is decreased sodium reabsorption and increased chloride and increased water loss. So there is diarrhea. So what happens? The classical example of adenylation is adenylation, that is our ADP ribose adenylation with the stimulatory G protein. And now as this covalent linkage occurs, then the stimulatory G protein it lost its intrinsic GTPase activity. So it becomes in activated form. What happens? Here two molecules. Here this G protein is GTP bound. But when it binds with this adenylation occurs, then its intrinsic GTPase activity is lost. So this is in activated form. So activated form means there is increased cyclic AMP, so there is decreased sodium reabsorption, increased chloride and water loss, and there is diarrhea. So this is the mechanism of cholera toxin. This is one important example of adenylation. So cholera toxin via the enzyme, via the bacteria Vibrio cholerae, that the toxin enters from the small intestine. Here one receptor is present, that is our GM1 ganglioside receptor. It enters within the small intestine. Through the small intestine, when it enters, what function it does? It causes the ADP ribosylation of the stimulatory G protein, so that the intrinsic GTPase activity is lost, increased cyclic AMP, so there is increased water loss and there is decreased sodium reabsorption and water diarrhea happens. So this is one example of adenylation, which is the basic example of our covalent molecules.